All righty then. I am joined by Robin Whalen, and thank you for coming and sitting down with us for a second. The goal of these conversations is for Liz and I and the team to like interview members of our community that we started, and it's kind of informal. It's to get a vibe on where you are with AI and how your perspective is. So the first question is. Just give us a little background. What is your name and what's your connection to marketing and education, actually?
Sure. That's an easy one. My name's Robin Whalen. I'm the president and CEO of Church and State. And we are an independent ad agency in Toronto, focusing on brand strategy, social media, mass advertising, you name it. And I mean, in the agency space, if you are not focused on AI and not figuring out how to integrate it into your workflow, you are far, far behind. So
There you
we're
go.
well on our way there.
Good, good. Yeah, and I had a conversation with Mark Cooper, who you might know from Junction, and he it was just nice talking to him because he's in many ways in the same
Right.
perspective you are. Okay, so let's step back a bit and give us kind of a dichotomy view of how you use AI in your personal life, and also then how it's working its way in the agency side.
So interesting question, because from a personal perspective, I almost sometimes forget that it's there.
Right.
Um, and I use it, I've just started using it to craft emails, help with party planning, things like that. But I forget it's there, and
Right.
I only turn to it if I'm on the struggle bus. So if I can't figure something else, I'm like, oh, well, I'll just check this thing. From a business perspective, it's very different. Being in the advertising and communication space, our role since the dawn of time as ad agencies was one, to create intellectual property and to come up with ideas that drive brands. And the nature of our work is creative and strategic. So
Right.
to think that there is an engine out there that can automate the very thing that we're paid to do
Right.
is one, exciting, and two, terrifying.
Scary.
Yeah,
Scary.
it's really scary because what's our role? How does compensation work? How do we ensure the ideas are exclusive? Like there's just so many layers to it. But what we've started doing is using it as a part of the workflow to increase productivity and efficiency. So, for example, um, asking a question of a chat GPT or whatever engine we're using on, what's the best strategy to convert casual users to loyal users. And
Right.
that's obviously not going to form the foundation for the strategy, but it's an input. So that's kind of how we look at it. If we're doing brand identity work, we might ask questions of, what are different ways of saying X? So let's just pretend this is a completely fictional
Right.
example. Let's pretend we're trying to brand a checking product for a bank. We could use it to say, what is a creative way of naming a conventional checking account?
Right.
Though the things that we get from AI are never the solution, but they are like an input and a jumping off point
Yeah.
for further brainstorms.
Like
So
a thought,
that's how we're
like
using it.
a thought starter or an ideation tool, which is a smart way to use it because even though you might have the smart folks in the room, it's another kind of insurance to get another layer of thought or some ideas generated that might not occur in those meetings.
Precisely. And it's never, in our experience, it has never been any of the inputs we've received have never been where we've landed,
Right.
but it has offered another laneway that we can explore. And we have had, I won't mention names, but we have had one client who actually said that AI, in terms of naming, actually had to be incorporated into our process.
Oh,
So one example, one client, and they weren't looking at it to like reduce fees. They were looking at it to test the viability of AI as a creative channel. So we did our traditional process and we
right.
incorporated AI as another stream.
Are you seeing a spectrum from your clients in terms of AI usage on their side?
I'm not seeing, with the exception of two major blue chip clients, we're not seeing a lot of AI integration from a client perspective. Two of them we are. But what's interesting, Stephen, is that we actually were in a pitch for, we'll say, the oil and gas industry. And
Mhm.
they were very specific to us in the pitch that they did not want any AI integration because
Right.
they were worried about trademarks,
Sure.
um, competition. So they had asked us what's our thought on AI. I shared with them exactly what I shared with you, and they said we do not want AI in the in your process. So we're like, understood. So it's very interesting to see where it's going, and I have a feeling this is the type of thing that's going to change on a weekly basis. Just looking at what's happened with Scarlett Johansson,
Yeah.
um, is like, what, like, how do we mitigate that risk moving forward? I don't know what the answer is, but be interesting to
Well, and
stay on.
it leads into so many gray, unregulated new areas for,
Exactly.
copyright in general, but just the ownership of creative, and where's that line? Where's AI? Where's the agency? Where those lines even exist in the future, right?
Exactly. Which is why, as an agency person, we can never use AI in totality, because
Right,
then what is the ownership?
right.
And we cannot lay claim to the intellectual property if we don't create it.
Sure.
So,
Do you use it at all in the briefing process, either on their side or your
absolutely.
side? Yeah,
It's actually a great, and we are working with a firm that is actually in beta for an AI engine that is actually to infuse the briefing process so that the briefs are um, have more data, have more insight,
right.
have more history. So that to me is a perfect integration of AI, because it's an infusion into a brief that precedes the idea versus the
Yeah.
answer itself.
Well,
So I think that's
yeah.
brilliant.
Well, and you and I have been around long enough to know that, like, the planning process is all over the board. You've got some people that are strong, or some people get it, and some people have the big business picture always in their mind, and others just want the goddamn tiger to be green or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what's wonderful, as as the CEO of a small mid-size agency, is that some agencies have all of the tools in the world and access to Forrester reports, and they
Right,
spend thousands and thousands a month. AI kind of equalizes
right.
the playing field, if you will, and gives everybody access to this type of information. So I love it as an input in that
Well,
way.
and also, and then in the real world, a good planner, it does a really is a aggressive competitive analysis all the time. You never know what the competition's doing. It changes overnight in this marketplace.
Yeah.
And any tools to help you speed up or make that a better briefing process are a good idea for both sides, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think there isn't a client in the world that's going to have a problem with that, because it actually makes their brief more insightful and inspirational. And that's what everybody wants. I think when you get into the forum of AI providing the solution or the creative idea, that's when it becomes
Yeah.
problematic, if that's your only stop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then also, the role of the long-term brand equity and brand management doesn't go away just because we have AI, you know
No,
what I mean?
it just might make it, and that's my hope, and that's what we're seeing, is it opens up access and makes things a little bit more efficient.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if that efficiency results in more time spent on more important things, or it results in savings for a client, either way, then you can focus your efforts, in areas that need it more.
Yeah, and they can see the agency relationship as actually adding even another dimension of value, really, if you do it the right way and own it the right way and be transparent in it.
Yeah, I think transparency is
Yeah,
key,
yeah,
and not moving forward with fear is key. Like, looking at this as a tool,
yeah.
but sharing how and where you get your information, like open, completely open book.
Let's switch a bit and talk about education for a bit. I'm when I first got access, so it was November of 22 to GPT. You know me enough to know I was obsessed right out of the gate, just because I knew it was going to change education in a
Right.
in a dramatic way. I could see
Right.
it unfolding. And then for about 6 months, I kind of wandered lost in the wilderness trying to talk to people
Yeah.
like,
And
you
you
know,
weren't alone.
no, I wasn't. I talked to U of T and they were like, no, we haven't done anything yet. Or I talked. So, but in the course of just the last year, it's exploded and changed. And that's really why another reason Liz and I created this community is
Right.
because I'm thrilled by what it can do to education and the idea of a patient tutor riding on top of good curriculum working. So in that sense, have you thought about when you teach, how are you teaching, if you're teaching at AI, or how are you incorporating it in your teaching at this point?
So what I've seen is again it being used as an input or to augment
Right.
your sources of information. But again, it's with a dose of caution because there's
Yeah.
no way to validate that what you're reading or what AI is serving up is correct. So I think it's more you still have to develop your curriculum from a teaching perspective. As a student, you still have to formulate your answer, and it can be used as something to either validate or add on, but it's not a standalone. But as a teacher myself that develops marketing curriculum, um, how I tend to work it is if I'm saying 5 strategies for content marketing, I'm
Right.
making it up. I will write what I think the 5 strategies for effective content marketing are. And then I use an AI engine to see if I'm in line.
Right.
Is there another perspective? And a lot of times it's fairly consistent, which to me says that
Yeah.
it is scraping good data from the internet. And it might give me, another avenue to explore, maybe a slight twist on things. There's a nuance. But I tend to start with my own information first
Yeah.
and then use it to supplement.
Well, and the learners are depending upon your expertise to
Well, that's
develop.
why I'm being hired. Exactly. So,
Right. And I think we were already seeing it. I'm seeing it I mean, I'm pushing a little forward, but I'm seeing already a dramatic change because, it wasn't that long ago, Robin, where professors and TAs and kind of all educators are like, oh no, we're going to use detection. You know what I mean? You're not allowed to use it. So it does also make us re-examine what assessments are at
oh, for sure.
right? And I think
Yeah.
that actually is one of the most profound things because the focus on adaptive for me is like if you see a learner struggling with a certain topic, the ability for the AI to like fill in, backfill automatically, like, oh, if you don't understand pivot tables to look at all this data we've got, do you see what I mean? Like that,
Hmm.
here's a little module on pivot tables just to make sure
Hmm.
you do that. It's a
Yeah, the one area that I think will have rapid change is in what I'm going to call creative assembly. So we're talking about AI as a more of an academic tool up until this point,
right,
and that's where I'm like, it's an input, it augments. But from a creative perspective, you can develop logos and you can develop social media posts and you can develop online display ads in a nanosecond. And everything I've seen is, are they as good? I'd argue no, but I come from the
right,
perspective of being an owner of an ad agency. But it depends on what you want. If you don't have a lot of budget, there are a lot of AI tools that can crank out 30 posts a month for you, in a fraction of the time and the budget. So that's where I think that our industry is going to see some disruption.
Yeah, I agree with you too. And also just the sheer ability to generate all that noise and volume
Hmm.
will disrupt.
Hmm.
And also, and we've talked about this a lot in these sessions, is what's going to happen with the brand website and SEO and that sort of thing because of it, because
Yes.
there will be changes. But, look, I mean, I'm a hopeless optimistic person about this. I do think also it won't it'll disrupt, but it's up to us to make sure it works for the brand, the clients. You know what I mean? I mean, part of this really is, and another reason why we did this community is we have to be in charge of the governance if it doesn't exist in many ways.
Right.
I mean,
Right. Absolutely. And make smart choices. And I don't like to say move slowly, but move with caution.
yeah. move cautiously, and
Yeah,
don't upset the apple cart with jobs and everything too. Just to, I mean, and that's what we're talking about with larger business integration of AI. It's like, you know, it's the use cases to start with. It's not going to solve all your business problems from a
yeah,
marketing perspective or a business problem,
yeah,
but move slowly, move cautiously, and also, no one to this, no one had these skills 2.5 years ago. So the idea of like of working it in carefully with the best minds in the business on
yeah.
both
And
sides.
transparently, I would add.
Yes, and
Yeah,
transparency. Well, and
yeah,
again, we've seen this a lot. Some of the professors on the community and the instructors, the ones that are in the front are being transparent about it.
right.
This is how you use it. This is how we would say to use it, but use it with caution and never take it for granted that it's
Yeah, yeah.
all
It's
right.
funny. The other day, my son wanted to purchase something that I didn't want him to purchase. He's spending a lot of money, and he wrote me a long letter justifying why he should be able to make this purchase.
Right.
And I knew he used AI
Ah,
to do it because some of the answers were about financial autonomy and learning how to manage money. And he's 17. So I thought I'm going to give him credit.
right,
That to me is he used AI as an input to make an argument. And in this case, it was perhaps a more elevated aspect of his argument. But I was
right.
like, isn't that just a case study for how we use it moving forward?
And you noticed it, but you also gave him credit for actually including it.
Oh, I knew. And then I said, go ahead and buy the $300 cologne.
I think it's funny though too, when you get that big chunk of robotic text, there are now, it's funny, there's become memes where there are certain words that are not, that are popped into the AI like delve and things like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Prosaic terms that your son
Yeah.
is using, right? All right, let's go dark for a second. What do you fear most about AI?
I think the obvious answer is I fear that some of the more operational aspects of business will be replaced by the engine and the impact that that has on our labor force, on the impact that has, access into certain careers. Like some of those things that it can absolutely and will likely replace are also the very roles that give people a foot in the door. So
Right,
that's my fear beyond um, rights, exclusivity, deep fakes, all of those things worry me. But from a business perspective and an access perspective, yeah, it makes me wonder. I would equate it to the automatic checkouts in stores and the
yeah,
impact that that has had on those roles and who those roles go to.
fair enough,
And
and
you
also,
hopefully, like when one door closes,
yeah.
another one opens, like hopefully that is the case, but that will remain to be seen.
Well, and I agree with you. And also, I think in some ways it might already be happening to some degree, just from the perspective of who are we hiring, where are we spending money?
Sure. We've
And
seen it.
and and sadly, I don't think we can't really depend on our government or our existing officials for much help in many ways, like
Yeah.
in this regard. That's
No.
another reason. Another
Yeah.
reason why to kind of keep a community aspect of it going or
Yeah.
conversation going, because and in marketing as well, there's a lot of nervousness, but also there's not much community connection, sharing, and discussing of this. It's just like what's happening over there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So what do you hope? Let's go the other way now. What do you hope AI can improve our lives with in the future?
I think all those mundane tasks that we don't have time for, like, the next time I love to travel. I plan a lot of travel. The next time I plan my next trip to Italy instead of me going to countless different sites,
Right.
to figure out where to go, what stops to make, what restaurants to go to, how to get from one island to the next. I think it can enhance our life that way, just making, those kinds of things easier. Um, but also perhaps, we talked about access, but looking at access in a different way, giving us access to information. Um, and ways of doing things that we normally wouldn't. So as a smaller agency, I think a lot about efficiency. So I love that AI opens up that world to me. I can get things done faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's the big picture stuff, like if it can help us cure cancer by scanning millions and millions of
I mean,
mammograms,
I haven't even, yeah, like
right?
what's the potential there? I can't even, I never comment on those things because I'm not in science. But that's astounding. And how it connects a global audience. I think we haven't even begun to explore that.
No, no, and I hear you about the travel thing too. One of my first, I've been aggressively testing and training now for over a year. After I left the CMA, I just became a student again, and it's been fascinating, to be honest.
Right.
So, and early on, I was training some of the map models on courses I have developed to see how they would adapt. And,
Ah,
and I mean, Robin, it was like right out of the gate, it did an amazing job. So in terms of that area, with adaptive learning, I am fascinated. But one of my first projects was I took a trip to Champagne in 2019. I went to Paris and then I
I
went to
remember. I remember.
it was wonderful, right? So I use that as kind of a case example to build an
Yeah.
agent to figure
Yes.
out how to optimize a trip to Reims again.
That's
And
exactly what I was thinking of. Like from a personal perspective, that was where my mind went. Yeah.
And you know what it did? It was now this was early on, so it was about a year ago, but it was when GPT could, you could it could I had cobbled together a couple of apps and it was churning and churning away, and I was trying to figure out where it was stuck. And it was so amazing. And this is something I hadn't asked it to do. Was trying to schedule the public transportation schedules of around Reims with actual events. Do you see what I mean?
Wow.
And honestly, I thought to myself, I wouldn't have even thought to
Thought of
do
that. Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
So for it to go and do it, like you said, it was like, think of an agent that could say, okay, if you go at this date, you could do this and this for this
Yeah, it's
and
like it would be the best travel agent in the world. I mean, there are so many sectors, I think,
yeah,
that are going to be revolutionized. And I think people go into fear, and instead it could be, well, there still has to be people somewhere. So I
sure.
think we need to focus our energies on how do we use this tool to make the thing that we do better and more efficient. And then what do we do with that saved time? Like
Yeah.
where do we add value in the thing that only humans can do?
And how do we improve our lives by having this as a massive tool? And that's,
Yeah.
I think, a really healthy way to approach.
Yeah.
All right. We're running out of time, but the most important question that we have of the day is the last one. Robin Whalen, what is the best sandwich?
Well, it's going to be controversial though.
But that's exactly why we asked this question.
It's a Calif. Have you ever had it's a California sandwich.
Yeah, you mean the veal cutlet or the chicken cutlets? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, with extra cheese, extra sauce, mushrooms,
Yeah.
hands down. And then in my head, I think it's actually a good food choice. I don't know why, but it's like I can be like, it's not that bad. I'll only eat half of it, and half of it is like 9,000 calories and 85 grams of fat, but I've only eaten half of it.
I
So,
when I was working at Saatchi was by the St. Lawrence Market,
oh,
and there's a place on the underground called Mustachios. I don't know if you've been there.
no, but
Well, now if you're nearby
I'm
during
yeah, I'm salivating thinking about it.
it's just like California sandwiches. It's just been like the food cart there
Oh,
for a long time.
delicious. That's
And
all I.
and yes, it was always like I would get this massive sandwich thinking, oh, I'll take half of it home, but it never quite made it there, did
It's also
it?
a sandwich. It's a healthy choice.
It is. All
Yeah.
right, Robin Whalen, thank you so much for joining. I've seen
I
you.
would love to say your full name, but I can't pronounce your last name. So thank
No,
you, Stephen.
it's Stephen Gigliotti, but thank you again for joining us. Thank you for being in Me and AI. I've seen you poking around the site a bit, and Liz and I are just doing it as a piece of like passion for the community
Great.
and
It's a
everything.
great
And
idea. I'm glad to be a part of it.
all righty, thanks. You
Thank
have a wonderful day.
you.
Say hi to Ron for me.
I will. Bye.
Okay, bye.